Welcome back to The Exchange, a podcast featuring real stories, real people, and real purpose. Today, I'm joined by photographer and storyteller Jeff Fierberg, a creative force known for capturing the soul of food, culture, and community. Jeff has just released his new book, Markets Volume 1, and we're talking about the art, the journey, and the community impact behind this work, including his upcoming book launch and food drive in the Mile High City. One of the things that I love about your photography is that it is so mysterious and alluring. Some of the shots are just really kind of not dark, but they leave something to be imagined. And when I look at your work, it's like I want to jump right into the photo and I'll see like a picture of an icy mountaintop or a peak. And then the next photo will be like steam coming off of a warm bowl of soup. And so it's just very realistic and it makes me want to live through your eyes or walk through your shoes. And before we get started talking about your upcoming project, I would love to know, when is the first time you picked up a camera?
Ooh, that's a great question. Probably very, very early. I was playing with my grandfather's and my father's film cameras at 4 or 5. I come from a family of journalists. I grew up in the newsrooms. Actually, here in Denver, my father was a reporter for KCNC for a long, long time. And I kind of grew up running around the newsrooms and hanging out with photographers and playing in places I shouldn't and causing trouble. And it's kind of all I've really ever done. I was making cool skate videos for my buddies and BMX videos for myself in middle school and high school, and kind of learning that way, and then went to college for this, and have pretty much just always done this as long as I can remember.
Wow, that's cool. So you grew up kind of envisioning this as your career. You knew that it was going to be artistic and journalism related?
I don't know if I knew it'd be this journalistic. I wanted to make movies. I went to film school. I wanted to direct and shoot and make films. And I think I found my way into more of what I do now, as an expression of what's available and what I really, really enjoy, and what brings me joy, and where I think I'm best. So I always knew it'd be something with a camera, but I don't know that I knew it would be exactly this from that early.
So that's cool that you had such early exposure and that you were able to really be hands-on from an early age and kind of develop your own style. Now, people in and around Denver get to experience your style really soon. We're going to celebrate your latest project with you on December 1st. So there's a special industry day event and it's going to be at Hot Shot Coffee. So let's talk about that project, the Markets Volume 1. But so you spent a year chasing markets across
Mhm.
continents, which is such a cool idea. How many did you visit in total?
In total, I visited a lot more than what's in the book, because I actually started working a little bit on volume 2 at the same time. And then there were some markets that I visited that didn't quite make it into the book for a couple of different reasons. But over the course of that year, I ended up in about 13 countries, and I ended up in over 20 markets.
And so, what was the moment that you decided this is more than just a photo series? I'm going to turn this into a whole book project.
It started as a book project. Kicked off as a project in November of 2023, as something that I knew would be and should be my first book project. I've done a lot of photo series, and I've done a lot of shows, especially here in the Denver area where I live and where I'm from. And so this was really a moment of kind of change in my career where I wanted to do a book. It was the first kind of idea I had that made doing a book enjoyable sounding to me. And practical, and kind of on message for what I want to do, and how I want to present my work. And so it actually started as a full-fledged book project. In November 23 of 23, we kind of conceptualized it. Me and a couple of buddies were having drinks in Hong Kong, and it kind of came to me there. And then we really started in earnest with a trip in Mexico City in February.
And so, when we're talking about a book, is this really photography heavy, or will there be a lot of like written essays and commentary and text as well?
Yeah, so the book itself, is right here. I'm blurred out. The book is really, really cool because for each market, there's an essay by somebody who isn't me. And it's somebody who has some sort of tie to that market to give it its own context, both historical and socioeconomical, and cultural to things that I can't speak to. So when we go to Goa, India, it's my photos, and interspersed with my photos is an essay from Thomas Zacharias, and the same is true for everywhere we go. And so when I was shooting some of those markets, part of the reason why they didn't make the cut is I didn't have an essayist at the time, or what ended up coming out of it was too similar to something else. But one of the big parts of making this book was it wasn't just me running around photographing markets. It was me working to assemble a team who could give context to the markets I was photographing, and do that in an elevated way. So it's mainly photos. It's a photo book. It's meant to be a visual medium, but each market gets its own piece of context.
I lived in Copenhagen for a short time several years ago. And when I got there, one of the things that stood out to me really was the market kind of culture and lifestyle. Being from the States, I was used to just going to the grocery store a few times a week. And there it was like, number one, you had to kind of go to the market every day or a small shop every day, or at least every other day. And it was just a whole dynamic. I mean, it was so ingrained into the culture. And so one of the things that interested me when I heard about Markets Volume One was the fact that you used markets as your photography subject, and really wondering what was it that stood out to you about market life, so to speak, that made
Yeah,
you want to capture?
I think, for me, one of the things that I'm really interested in creating and capturing, because of where I kind of spend my time every day, is the food system and where the food system interacts with the commercial system. I shoot a lot of restaurants in town, and I do a lot of work as a hospitality photographer. And so for me to, ultimately be able to capture the moment where a producer interacts with a buyer and there's no middle point, really strips back a lot of the kind of construction and infrastructure around a food system, and makes it much cleaner to explain and to understand. I want to find those moments, and I think that's what draws us in as travelers or people who move to places, and it's the energy of those markets and the energy of those moments that I think is what everybody enjoys about a market. Right? You get to see a full table of what people are up to and what people are doing. And so that's one of the things that I really appreciate about markets everywhere that I go. And it seems to be ubiquitous, right? We can always start at that point. A market is a collection of people who are selling their things that they've grown or raised for slaughter. And so to me, that's a really important kind of litmus point for a culture. And from there, we can take it and explore.
One of the things that I saw that you said about this project is that a market is not just a place where life exists, it really collides and crashes. And you talked about that raw, beating heart. And so that energy of people who are bringing their lives to this shared space, it's got to be so cool as a photographer. What does it feel like to look through the lens and try to tell a story about what you're seeing in the space that most people here haven't experienced?
Yeah, I think there's a few phases to what that story looks like and how it works, right? I mean, in the moment, the goal is to capture as much as you can, and to find ways to capture everything you can, right? From the small details and the intricacies of the hands and how the tables are laid out to the big, wide kind of shots that show you how the market is laid out or where physically the market is. And then to me, the really interesting and more difficult part is to take that large series of photos and distill it down. Each chapter of this project, has somewhere around 40 photos in it. And so to take hundreds and hundreds of photos and distill them into 40 to tell a really nice, succinct project is where it gets fun and difficult, and probably where there's a little bit more of my fingerprints on it, right? Every time you edit, you take something out to put something in, and you make a decision based on what you want to say. And so in a lot of ways, I use the essays to kind of help with that as well. I try to back up and make points that they're making and show what they're saying, to create more of a holistic experience of the market.
That's a great insight and way of looking at it. Now, you talked about the taking out the middleman when it comes to the food producers and the food purchasers or consumers. And I know that your industry day event is going to be a community food drive as well.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I'd love to know why it's important for you that you tied the release of your book and kind of the celebration of your book to an event that is so rooted in community nourishment and care.
I think there are a couple of things that kind of made this a reality. I think the first one is that people are struggling. It's a really difficult time for some people in our community. And it is a really difficult moment for some of those people to get help. And it's not that there aren't people doing the exact same thing all over the city. It's that we're reaching a point where it's kind of no longer the top of the news. And so it's important to do what we can and continue to give where we can. And so finding a way to tie in just the ability to do a can drive to me was a kind of an easy thing to realize was important. The other part of this, I think, is that you can't discuss the food system and you can't really discuss this project of work without also looking at systems of power and systems of struggle. Most of these markets, and probably half of the markets in the book exist in large cities and the other half exist rurally. But food scarcity and making sure that communities are fed is what markets are for. Markets have almost always been completely human organized, non-government bodies. And with few exceptions, they remain that way, right? Even the farmers markets we have here are largely, successful based on the necessity of finding ways to get food into those communities and putting that food in communities that want it. And so to me, it really goes hand in hand, and it's really the same lever and mechanism. So we decided to do a food drive for Food Bank of the Rocky Mountains. We are also donating 15% of every purchase of the book from now until the end of the year to the exact same place. They can always distribute that food, but they also need money to help with the infrastructure and actual distribution. So we're trying to do both and still, give somebody something cool to have on their coffee table and give somebody a reason to come out and have a drink or a non-alcoholic drink with us on a Monday afternoon and celebrate the industry and the people that cook our food here.
I love that you say that this is not really top of news anymore because that's so true, right? Like, especially with a journalistic kind of perspective, we see the news cycles and we see how fast people's kind of attention span, not really attention span, but what they are shown, it really cycles through so quickly. And so it's easy to forget. And so I love that you're doing this right at the holiday season. And I love that you're wrapping the cans or the beverages in photos of your work. That's really cool.
Yeah, so the cocktails are canned from our friends at Semi Precious, a local bar in the Highlands, and I designed three. There are three cocktails, so each cocktail has its own distinct label with artwork from the book.
Now, tell me a little bit about Bowery Creative Department.
Yeah, that's my company. We are a local, basically a creative studio here in Denver. We specialize in photo and video, but we also do web development and branding, and we specialize in travel, food, lived craft, and experience, and working with people, both big and small. So we do work with some of the smallest, most independent restaurants we can. We also do work with some of the largest chains in the country, and find that we're best when we're telling stories of people who are really passionate.
I love artists and I love how you are all able to just shape your artistic expression into these companies that not only feed into your desire to create, but also help the community around you. So I think that's really neat.
Yeah.
Before we go, I want to discuss something that you mentioned early on, which is Markets Volume 2. And, you mentioned themes of like food insecurity and systems of power and these takeaways that people can really get from Markets Volume 1. What can we expect from Markets Volume 2?
I don't know yet. In earnest, we just kind of kicked off with our big list of markets, and our goal is to go farther and wider and tell the story in an even more deep and poignant way. So I think you can expect more. I think you can expect markets that you've probably not heard of and some that you have. Because it's the second volume, because we have a little bit of momentum behind us, we're definitely able to do things I wasn't able to do for Market Volume 1. And so the goal is to just continue to tell the story and continue to, realistically also catalog some of these things for us.
Now, people who are interested in viewing your work can do that at Pulse Visual Art on Walnut Street, and that's going to be now through December 20th. So that's another way to kind of really be immersed in the world that you create through your lens. And I appreciate that. Where can people follow you to learn more about your work, to learn more about pop-ups and special
Yeah.
events?
You can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is the letter J, Fierberg, my last name. I announce pretty much everything I'm doing there. That's where you'll find more news about Markets Volume 2. You'll see more information on our event on 12/1 and information on my artist talk on 12/12. Books will be available at both. They're also available from our website, bowerycreativedepartment.com/book.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate you explaining some of your vision with me and with our audiences. And I just wish you the best as you are out traveling the world and getting all these great shots.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's really great to talk to you, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in a week or so as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be there. Have a happy holiday.
You as well. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks.